I have been waiting. Will you join me?
Hello, welcome back to Star Wars. My name is Phil, of course. I'm joined, as usual, by Matt and Robin. Good evening, gentlemen.
Hello. You did that countdown like Wayne's World 2. 5, 4.
I mean, yeah, it's bound to happen. It's bound to happen.
Right.
But how are we doing this fine evening?
Yes. It's been a hot minute, hasn't it?
It has, yes. I'm not going to go into it too much in depth, of course, on camera, but there's some personal issues off screen, which has unfortunately meant that the last show had to be unfortunately missed. So hopefully you all caught our publishing video that I put out last week. But yes, we are back, and tonight we're cracking into something that actually came about before Star Wars was a thing, when I was helping Matt move for like the umpteenth bloody time for a few weeks ago. But yes, villains. Star Wars villains. We talk about recurring versus one-off villains. Of course, throughout the entire Star Wars universe, through books, comics, games, films, and everything else, there have been many people to come and go. Of course, overarching villains, including Palpatine and Vader and all bits and pieces. But there's some villains that we've barely even seen that we want more of. And tonight's show, we're going to kind of look into our favourites, who we want to see more of, who we may want to see less of. I mean, especially Palpatine's going to be a sticking point on that one. We talk about episode 9. But yeah, to crack into it, guys, I'm going to throw this one over to Rob. I'm going to throw you under the bus first.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Favourite Star Wars villain? And why?
Does Hondo count as a villain?
That's going to be an interesting question, because I don't think he does.
Because, I mean, let's not forget the time he literally tried to kill a bunch of younglings.
This is true. In Hondo's very first appearance, he did indeed try to kill a...
It wasn't his first appearance. It was
it not?
his,
Was it
his second or third, I think.
Yeah. He did try to kill a small amount of Jedi younglings. I mean, everyone's got their little bit of shady past, right?
Yeah, but...
Everyone kills younglings.
If we're counting Hondo as a villain, then Hondo, because Hondo's awesome.
I mean, to be fair, if
younglings.
you talk about some other villains, well, maybe Vader as well, everyone's got a villainous murderous streak for younglings. Everyone does it. Yeah, it's all fine, right?
Yeah, no one wants to kill kids. It's normal, isn't it?
Who doesn't, apparently? No, it's all good.
Well, yeah, Hondo, and I also like, I know it's a Professor Sloane, I don't know why. Grand Admiral Sloane from the books and stuff. Because she was like, when like Disney like started doing their thing, she was the first one I actually realised that she is.
Oh, look at that. She's looking at you.
Oh, God, she
is indeed. Yeah. she's judging you for your opinion. Okay, come on then.
Hey, stop judging me. I like you.
You being what?
Because yeah, she was like the first one that I actually saw like jump from book to book. Because I literally finished reading Aftermath, and then I jumped straight into New Dawn, which is obviously set before Rebels.
Yeah.
And obviously Aftermath is set after Return of the Jedi. And it's like, I just read this book with this character in, and I was on a totally different one that had nothing to do with that book, and there was this character. And I was like, wait, they're actually doing this. And she just keeps popping up in other stuff. Like she gets dropped in Battlefront 2.
Yeah, Grand Admiral Sloane's one of my favourite characters from the books, purely because, again, as you said, it's the first kind of expanded villain that Disney have brought in that is their own creation.
Yeah.
She's, of course, don't forget, she's also been in the comics as well. She's in the Kanan comic as well.
Yes.
So
yeah.
she appeared in
only
three
thing she
different
has
eras.
been in is a show or film. Yes.
For the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, she could potentially turn up in Mandalorian season 2.
She could. The timelines do allow that to happen, and she's one of those characters that I would like to see invest more. Of course, so she's also... Yeah, I mean, it's also she's the first villain of color, I believe, as well, if I'm correct.
It depends how you class Vader between Vace and Foy.
I mean, that's kind of a...
Well, yeah, okay, so yeah, voice correct, yes, but I mean, full visual representation. So I believe she's the first villain of color. That doesn't make a difference to the character. The character's a very interesting one, especially if you get to the end of Aftermath, where she has a choice of what she can do, and the path she takes. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but she is presented with a choice of, does she continue on with the Empire, or does she leave them all behind? And what she does is very interesting indeed. So yeah, a couple of good choices there. Hondo would definitely go cycle back to, because I don't personally believe he is a villain. He's the epitome to me of scum and villainy in terms of playing both sides of the fence. He has no loyalty. Doesn't mean he's not a villain in some cases, also doesn't mean he's not what you consider a hero in others. I think he's one of the most Star Wars anti-heroes that you can get. Matt, throw it over to you.
I feel I know what the obvious answer is, which is Boba. But I mean, out and out favorite villain. Hey, check that out. See,
Gotta have your boy on here.
is that the Hot Toy or is that from Battlefront?
No, that's from.
No idea, but that picture's flipped.
That's the Hot Toy, I think.
Yeah. Cheaping out.
What are you
What are you cheaping out? Like you're pulling into the Boba thing, and in the old like Legends thing, when he works for the Rebels at some point, he's just like, I don't like the Empire, they just pay well. So I think probably favorite villain is Krennic.
Yeah.
If I'm honest, we've got a screen grab of Krennic.
I do. I haven't actually put it in here. I was doing everything as we're going along, so I do have Krennic. Krennic is a lovely man. Where is he?
Like the conversation came up with Phil when we were moving about. There he is. Look at that. He's not happy. The conversation kind of came about, especially about villains, where we were talking about the Palpatine thing, weren't we? And recycling villains and whatnot. And the villains I kind of like are the ones who, like, they have a cause that you can like empathize and relate to. The extreme example is Thanos, and genocide is really bad. Don't do it. But it's that kind of the way he lays out his plan in Infinity War is just like, I killed half the planet. No one went hungry. Like, oh, you kind of got a point. Krennic's a really interesting villain because he's a victim of his own success. And like, it's relatable. It doesn't matter that he's part of the Empire. Like, you listen to him and you watch him kind of lose it when Tarkin's like, yeah, this is my idea now. I'm taking it. Yeah. And, the whole, we were this club, greatness. Yeah. I think Krennic is such an interesting character because he's ultimately incredibly human. I mean, he's literally human, but ultimately, like, what happens to him is relatable to everyone. Like one person does all the work in a group project and someone's in and takes it. And this is the thing about Star Wars, is there's so many really, really good villains that don't get an opportunity to really shine because it's more than a nemesis level. You've got the overarching Palpatine thing, and God forbid that anyone's better than Palpatine is, because he's a crutch to the storytelling to an extent. Yeah. So I'm going to go with Krennic. Like, I think that's got to be it.
Yeah, so funny enough, for me, on the flip side of Krennic, you've really got to take a look at, personally, Tarkin. Tarkin is one of those villains that you don't... Again, he's one of those one-off villains in terms of the films. You see him, of course, a little bit in Rogue One. He's more prevalent, of course, in A New Hope. So I count him more as a one-off, technically, than a recurring villain, although he is a recurring villain. But Tarkin, again, is one of those complicated people. Again, he's very much human, but he's the other side of it, where you have Vader force choke Krennic and say, "Be careful not to choke on your aspirations, director." The same could be said. Yeah, the same could be said for Tarkin, though. Tarkin is a very ambitious man. He's a very ruthless man. Whereas Krennic kind of sees what he's doing as what's good and just for the Empire, so justifying what he believes is a necessary evil. Tarkin is more controlled by fear. Tarkin's very much especially if you read his book, the book Tarkin, it talks about his upbringing. It talks about the Carrion Spike. So his whole upbringing, his whole thing is you have to survive 24 hours on top of this mountain that no one comes down from. There's literally members of his family strewn across this mountain the way up there because they're picked on as you go up. And it's a case of a villain who is brought up thinking that to be able to survive, you have to be tough, you have to be ruthless, you have to be aggressive. And although, it's a very almost a businessman approach to it, whereas Krennic, as you said, comes from that, again, another human side of it, but it's a human flaw of pride almost with Krennic. He thinks it's just pride and justice for the Empire by justifying the necessary evils. Tarkin, of course, is the one who oversees the entire Death Star project. The codename Stardust current project. Robin, you may be able to help me. I remember the actual designation for the Death Star weapon itself.
Project Robin. That's a great name for it.
Yes, it is. It is canonically Project Robin. Yeah, I think
It
it's.
is.
I think the like official term is like. I think it's literally just like DSO1. I think.
Yeah, there's a specific designation for it in
Yeah,
Catalyst, which is
Rogue One.
preceding. Again, Catalyst is an amazing novel. It precedes Rogue One. It actually should have been the crawl for Rogue One. If you ever read Catalyst, you'll see what I mean. It's a book that.
Yeah, but Rogue One
very
didn't need crawl.
No, but if you read Catalyst,
One of the reasons why it's great.
Correct, but if you read Catalyst, it reads like what the crawl would have been. An extended crawl, obviously.
I mean, it'd be a very long crawl.
Yes, it'd also be very
I think
messy to
it'll
have a
explore
crawl within something that was referencing a crawl for episode 4, of course. But no, Tarkin's one of those villains that I would love to have seen more of, and I think that Guy Henry did a very good job of playing him in Rogue One. Of course, he had to play the late Peter Cushing, so his version of that. I think he had the inflections down in the way he moved, the way he spoke. Of course, it's not Peter Cushing's, but it's still better than
one problem with his performance in Rogue One.
Go on.
He wasn't wearing the fuzzy slippers.
Well, we don't know. We don't know.
No, because you see full shot. He wasn't wearing the fuzzy slippers.
This is true. But the same token, though, it's still better than the abomination we got in episode 3 of Tarkin. That really was just not Tarkin.
To be fair, though, that was only on screen for like 10 seconds.
Exactly. But as I said, so at the moment we've been talking more about the original trilogy era, with Sloane being the exception, talking about other places as well, because she just pop in from time to time. But also Hondo Ohnaka, a first appearance in the Clone Wars, appears in Rebels, should have appeared in Resistance, but didn't. Of course, we know all the Galaxy's Edge and his recurring things. Then I'm gonna bring it back to Hondo before we look at some other recurring villains who I think we would like to see more of, and when it comes to Palpatine villains, seeing less of. Hondo, I don't believe personally is a villain per se. Scum and villainy in terms of the playing both sides. He's out for himself. He's a very selfish one. The other one that considered in that is Jabba the Hutt. Jabba is out for himself.
Look at him.
There's a big boy himself. Jabba is out for himself. He's out for the Hutt.
I'm not happy to see it.
Again, he is one of those characters that, yes, traditionally is a villain, of course, especially to Han Solo is kind of a pain in the large.
He's a crime lord.
So
Yeah.
at what point are we talking about this like morally ambiguous grey area characters? Are we going, yeah, my favorite villains are Han and Chewie? Because they're career criminals.
I mean, depending on your point of view, you could say your favorite villains are the Rebellion.
My
Or the
favorite
Resistance.
villain is Luke. But like, seriously,
Depending on your point of view.
being like he's a career criminal, he kills people, he does this. You said, well, Lando,
Yep.
Han, Chewie, all of that. Like, at what point are you going to draw the line between this guy's a villain and this guy's like an anti-hero?
Exactly. Although, talking about Jabba, though, Jabba's one of those villains I would have liked to see more of. We do see him, of course, in episode 4 and episode 6, referenced in episode 5, of course. But if they end up bringing back, so if this rumored Lando series happens, Jabba is one of those villains I want to see in that. Jabba and Boba.
Okay. So good.
Jabba offers.
Yes, I don't think we've ever had.
Sorry, go on.
We've never really had a reference to Lando meeting Jabba.
No.
Maybe they
So
didn't.
Maybe.
Maybe it's a Skype thing.
I mean, yeah, we could potentially see Jabba in this potential Lando series, but I don't think Lando has ever met Jabba. I mean, they could obviously change that in the series, but
Exactly, not that we know of, but I think it would be a great way to bring Jabba and the Hutt Cartel more into it, and then through that they can go through the syndicates, of course, talking about Crimson Dawn with the Pikes and everything else. You have
Paul
again
Bettany
avenues.
is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, so Dryden Voss again
It's not just Paul Bettany. It's like, yeah, Paul Bettany is a bad guy in Star Wars.
yeah, I mean, but technically he is, but not as Paul
He plays
Bettany.
himself.
For some reason, my picture of him hasn't saved, which is ironic considering who we're talking about here. Yeah, so Dryden Voss is one of those villains that, again, I think it encapsulates the perfect one-shot villain. He was set up, he was killed, he had a good story, but also led you more into talking about Darth Maul, talking about, well, that's not just Maul, talking about the other syndicates, talking about, you know, bosses within bosses within bosses. He's a stereotypical mob boss. I mean, you know, Jabba is your big old fat gangster more of the New York style mob boss, and I think Dryden Voss is kind of a little sleazier. Again, you could say almost a London style gangster, of course, given Paul Bettany. But Solo itself was a complex film. You had more in the background, which you didn't realize until the very end. But Dryden Voss gave Solo something to do, but he also gave him something to fight against. He gave him that first little shot of, he's rebelling against the Empire, but who else is he going against? He ends up giving the coaxium hyperfuel to those who need it. Yes, it's the first time he runs into the rebels, and I will say again, I don't know if that was necessary in terms of them being against the rebel.
I thought Enfys Nest was amazing.
Enfys Nest was my favorite characters from the film. I would love to see more of her.
Her and the Space Biker gang were cool. The character design was great. It looked like my Warlock when he's played Destiny. Space Hell's Angels, I'm down with it. I'm all for that. I thought that was really cool.
And Warwick Davis was part of that crew, playing the character he played in episode 1. So
yeah, did he play the same character?
Yeah, he's actually the same character he plays in episode 1 we see him in the pod race.
Wow, I didn't know that.
That's Weasel. Yeah, that's one of the weirdest little.
One of the weirdest Easter eggs in Solo is Warwick Davis is, for the first time in Star Wars, playing the same character as someone he's played before.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I just accepted
the first time, until you got to episode 9 where he finally reprised his role as Wicket.
I said the first time.
Yes.
No, I didn't know that. I just thought it was, let's give Warwick Davis something to do.
I mean, it was that, but then at the same time, we're running out of W names to give this guy. We'll just give him one we've already given him.
To be fair, with Warwick Davis, isn't that just the way? We're making a Star Wars film. How do we cram him in somewhere? I mean, next to Anthony Daniels. Yeah, next to Anthony Daniels, he's the one that's turned up the most. Let's just shove it in, like film after film. Of course, Mark Hamill as well, but Mark Hamill has done many a voice, not just appeared on screen as Luke. But going back to Dryden Voss, he was a character that, after watching the film, I want to know more about. He's one of those ones that.
I think Solo did a really good job in setting up. We had the Hutt, like Jabba, but the Hutts weren't really a thing when you first watched that film. You got to dig again. It's that thing we said last time. You got to dig a little bit deeper. Then in episode 1, you start to piece the pictures together. But I guess the Crimson Dawn were the first really, for me, as a filthy casual, was the first instant kind of, here's a branding of a criminal organization. And they teased it. They really teased Crimson Dawn hard with Kira and Maul and Paul Bettany. It was teased super hard, and he had his Leia, and he was suave, and he was almost like a Bond villain-esque character, I think. He wouldn't have looked out of place in a Bond film, except for the vibro knuckles. But
although the scars definitely would fit Bond. Like this Lashif style scar for sure.
Be the next Bond villain. And I think it's an element of, they really started at that point. It felt like we were going to take a deep dive into the underworld through Solo, and then it fell apart. And I think this is the crux of it, isn't it? There's these great villains that they could utilize and give us more of, because they're good villains, They have a purpose. They're enthralling to a degree. You want to sit there and you want to engage with them, and you want to know why they're doing what they're doing. But it's very difficult for, I think, a villain to breathe in Star Wars, because in episode 9, let's do it. Let's just get out of the way now. In episode 9, they use Palpatine as the crux to kind of stitch everything together, and it felt really lazy. And it's the whole thing, isn't it? And this is what we spoke about, Phil.
Yeah.
DC Man of Steel, you had Michael Shannon playing General Zod, and that was cool. I really liked his General Zod. I really liked the film, and I really liked Zod. I don't care what you think. I loved it. I've got to talk about what I love. And then in Justice League, in Batman vs. Superman, they recycled Zod into someone new. They were like, Doomsday. And it felt like a really intelligent progression. Here's this villain who was, Michael Shannon was great. Here's this villain who's really, really good. Now we're going to make him this next villain, but now we don't really need to give a big backstory. Whereas Rise of Skywalker, I felt, personally, as I think we've spoken about it before, Phil, that I felt Snoke had some really good potential.
Yeah.
I felt Snoke could. I was really excited about Snoke. Really excited about Snoke. And then, spoilers, he gets hacked.
Yeah.
And it just felt lazy. And like we spoke about Thrawn in the after show last time.
Yeah.
We're just like, why not get a high ranking like officer being the bad guy, like Sloane, like Thrawn, like Hux could have been incredible as like the main overarching bad guy for the sequel trilogy. Like, how good would that have been? It's not some force wielding maniac. It's a dictator. It's a political.
Well, heck, it could have been Pride.
Could have been what?
General Pride, as in
General Pride.
I thought it could have been
Legion General Pride.
Was that?
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah,
You're
Richard
right.
Grant. He was phenomenal in The Rise of Skywalker. He's my favorite character from that film, and I will say that hands down. I love Luke. He's my favorite character throughout Star Wars. But in The Rise of Skywalker, General Pride, again, this is the problem. Again, talking about villains that are hard to breathe in Star Wars, without trying not to reference both Grievous and Darth Vader, of course. Literally difficult to breathe in Star Wars.
That was quick.
Had to be done. But Richard E. Grant as General Pride, Dryden Voss in with Paul Bettany in Solo. You talk about other villains again. Set up, have a bit of story, killed. They have such a limited scope, yet we want more from them. Again, talk about Grand Admiral Thrawn. Grand Admiral Thrawn. This image is taken from the Chaos Rising, which is the what was it?
No, it's Allegiance.
So Treason.
Should just be Benedict.
Either way.
No, it's Pierce Brosnan.
Yes, it's definitely Pierce Brosnan.
I mean, I'd like to see Cumberbatch play it, you know. But the problem Star Wars has is it's got Vader, and Vader is one of the most iconic movie villains in history. And then Palpatine gets introduced as like Vader's boss, and it's like going too hard too early. You can't suddenly back down from this. Like everyone knows who Batman is. Everyone knows who Vader is. Everybody knows who Darth Vader is, and that's why he was a good villain. He was used the right amount. He had his redemption arc with it himself. Maul came back. Primarily as a fan favorite, wasn't it? People were just like, they wanted more of Maul. He had his cool double-ended lightsaber, and he's killed Qui-Gon Jinn and knocked Obi-Wan down a hole. And no, we want him back. We want more Maul. I don't know anyone that sat there and went, I want more Palpatine.
This is the crux of the matter when we talk about Palpatine when it comes to episode 9. I remember talking
7 episodes of this before we can talk about Palpatine. Is that what you're telling me?
Oh god, yeah. We're gonna wait.
Episode 9. That's what we're gonna do.
No, so I remember talking to Robin, and actually probably yourself, Matt, as well, before episode 9 came out, when they were talking about bringing Palp back. We had the laugh and everything else. I was like, as long as they don't go down the clone route from the old expanded universe, I will be fine with it. As long as they find a very clever way to do it.
It wasn't clever.
No. That's my point. So as long as they don't go down that road, by both doing the clone, it would be very clever. Let's see what they can do with it. And they use the clone technique. And again, talking about Snoke, it wrecked Snoke's build-up and backstory and mythos because, well, it's just someone from Palpatine's past that you just went, cool, I like the way you kind of, I'm going to nick you and make you into a failed clone thing. And it's lazy. I love cherry-picking stuff from the old expanded universe is great. Thrawn is case in point. Thrawn was, of course, written by Timothy Zahn, and they brought him back to reintroduce him in the Thrawn books. He was, of course, reintroduced to the universe via Rebels, and of course, I was actually at Star Wars Celebration in 2016 when in the Rebels panel when they announced Thrawn coming back, and the energy in the room was just palpable. It was incredible. It was an experience I'll never forget.
To say the energy in the room was Palpatine.
Yeah.
So,
sleepy. I'm just saying, how?
The energy was on them Palpatine.
Yeah.
The energy was Palpatine. But
the energy was completely Palpatine.
Characters who have realistic, believable motives and it's what I'm gonna say, it's what Marvel do so well is that all of the villains throughout all of the films have a motive where you go, oh, yeah, it's believable. And Palpatine's motive isn't believable because he pretty much achieves it in episode 3. And then you have 6 films of him just losing it.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's weak. It's weak. They could like Snoke.
I mean, the whole thing for Palpatine is absolute power corrupts absolutely. You know, he eventually is taken down by his own hubris. I mean, Luke talks about the Jedi's hubris allowing Palpatine to rise to power in Episode 8, and that's one of my favorite speeches now. Watching back Episode 8 is watching Luke's journey, realizing the mistakes and realizing how far he had fallen and how far he had come and where he needs to go to, which is why when he finally reopens himself to the Force and Yoda comes back to him and talks about it, it's continuing his journey. It's why I'm very happy with what they did with Luke. But Palpatine, of course, is, I mean, gotta bring the boy up himself, is absolute power corrupts absolutely. And episode 6 is pinnacle Palpatine for me. And by the time you get episode 9, it's just, no. He is used as a scapegoat. And don't get me wrong, I know J.J. Abrams had a very difficult task. You had to tie up 9 films. You had to, unfortunately, deal with the passing of Carrie Fisher. There's plot lines and storylines that needs to be dealt with. But unfortunately, I think this was the easy way out. And instead of focusing on something new, they took the easy way out. I mean, if you look at the Knights of Ren, again, something that was kind of hinted at in episode 7, kind of cool, didn't need to be brought back, didn't need to be just walk around aimlessly kind of trying to look cool, but they were. And yeah, the fight scene with Ben at the end is cool, but again, was not necessarily. We all know that this is just the ultimate in terms of screw you, want a fight scene in the corridor or fight scene in anywhere, just
really cool as well.
That was the scene that nearly killed me.
I mean, that scene right there is the Vader we've wanted all along. I mean, we all 3 of us have read Vader Down, and Vader Down has my favorite line from Vader from anything ever, which is when Vader is surrounded by rebels. He goes, give up, you are surrounded. He goes, the only thing I'm surrounded by is fear and dead men. Next panel is literally just like 60 plus rebels dead. It's just the most brutal thing, and it's just, I absolutely love it. And Vader's an interesting villain when it comes to Star Wars, because Anakin becomes Vader primarily in episode 3. He starts to turn evil, of course, throughout episode 2. He starts to be corrupted and has his visions, and he goes down the path of loss. And you have his journey from fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. By the time you get to episode 4, he is a very broken man. He's on Tarkin's leash. He's emasculated by Palpatine. Palpatine has gone, you were supposed to be my right-hand man, but you were bested by Obi-Wan. You allowed yourself to become this husk of who you were supposed to be. Therefore, I'm just going to punish you for that, and keeps him down because he knows Vader's true potential. By the time you get to episode 6, of course, Luke is able to turn him back. 5 is pinnacle Vader, bar the corridor scene of Rogue One. Episode 5 is Vader going, I give no damn. I'm going to, we need to go into an asteroid belt to find the Falcon. Fine. Sacrifice my own ships. I don't care. We need to find him. I need that ship, and I want him now. And he goes so pissed off with his own troops, he ends up hiring bounty hunters. Of course, he had the famous lines with Boba Fett, no disintegration, which of course then leads into the Mandalorian and disintegrating Jawas, which is by far one of the funniest things I've ever seen in the history of Star Wars. I mean, I know people who don't like Jawas. I'm okay with Jawas. I find them quite hilarious. They are comic relief, but to watch them get obliterated is just very, very satisfying. But Vader is a very 3-dimensional villain, whereas I end up thinking Palpatine is very 2-dimensional. Palpatine is your very classic, I am the big bad evil guy. I want to control everything, I want to kill everything, done. There is no depth to him.
Boring. Sorry, but he's so boring. But you're in episode 1 and you're just like, now let's watch the Space House of Commons.
I mean,
episode 2 and then episode 3, and then he's not around in episode 4 because episode 5 is when he's just like, I'm a hologram. And then episode 6, he does his thing, but he doesn't do a lot. He fires lightning out of his fingers and dies.
Yeah.
Dies. Spoilers, he comes back in episode 9 attached to a crane.
Yeah, I mean...
The people, Sith Acolytes would have been a better villain than Palpatine was.
It's a very contentious point. I mean, of course, now the famous scene of him being thrown down the well, that blue flash is not him hitting the reactor core, that's him leaving his body.
88 miles an hour and going forward.
That's how he gets into the
I've just written a better film than episode 9.
Yep. Just as you hear him just plummet down, all you hear is
That John
No,
Williams?
no. What you hear is just as he's about to hit is Scott.
Was John Williams about the future theme?
No, he didn't.
That was Hans Zimmer, wasn't it?
No, I can't remember who did Back to the Future, but it wasn't John
It
Williams.
wasn't John Williams.
Hmm.
I still think that's a better theory for Palpatine coming back, was that he hit 88 miles an hour. I'm just gonna have a look who did that.
I think it's Zimmer from my recollection, but I may be wrong on that one. I don't think it's Danny Elfman.
But it's just what a week future. Like when The Force Awakens came out,
Yep.
it was a really exciting time. It was Alan Silvestri,
Yeah, fair.
who's the
That's
guy
it.
who did Avengers. I think Game of Thrones. I don't know.
No, he didn't do the Game of Thrones.
Who didn't-
That was Ramin Djawadi.
Yeah, he did Iron Man 1. Which was really cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
Palpatine.
Yeah.
Force Awakens is an exciting time for everyone as a fan base because you saw Snoke, and the fan theories about Snoke were great. There were people going, "It's Mace Windu." There were people going, "It's Anakin," or "It's Anakin's spirit split."
My favorite semi-serious one is the Stormtrooper that banged his head. Because when you see him bang his head, it's in roughly the same place Snoke had his big gash.
I mean, that is one of my favorite things. The fact that they have now not only made it more prevalent in Episode 4 by adding
But as it turned out, that's just the
sound effect.
Stormtrooper that got mind tricked by Obi-Wan.
Yeah, they have that in the from a certain point of view for Episode 4 New Hope book, and it is. I haven't read all of it. I've read that one particular story, and it is quite hilarious, just purely because, yeah, the Stormtrooper bangs his head is the one that has been mind tricked by Obi-Wan, so it's still a little bit fuzzy from the Jedi mind
That's
trick.
why he banged his head, because he's still fuzzy from the mind trick.
Yeah, I mean,
But it
again,
was
He's literally getting sand out of his armor, and then he has to go to the thing and bangs his head.
and then gets blown up on the Death Star. I mean, how bad a day can you have?
it was an exciting time for the fan base because
Yeah.
it was full of speculation. It was full of people doing these deep cuts and deep pulls on extended lore and defunct lore and
Yeah.
taking real deep dives onto the theory to be like, who's Snoke? It's really exciting. We all
He's
spent
Thrawn.
time doing this.
Yeah.
And then so the thing is, you've got interesting villains who deserve more of a spotlight. I felt Palpatine was like the whole Nemesis thing, right?
Mm.
There's not really a Nemesis in Star Wars, like
Yeah.
Batman, Joker, whatever. You don't really get Luke. I don't say Luke and Vader are Nemesis. The closest I think you get is like Boba and Jabba,
Mm.
I think, because it seems like a personal vendetta. But for the Rebel Alliance to have gone against like this hate speech type, like Thrawn, like Hux, like Sloane,
Mm.
I think could have made for a more relatable movie, and that's what makes Krennic and I think ultimately Rogue One really good because you don't get Vader till that last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So the
I mean,
2 hours or whatever it is
Yeah, but by
Yeah.
the time Vader turns up in that scene, it's basically gone from being Rogue One to
Yeah.
being A New Hope anyway.
and it's done really well. The problem with the Vader scene is you forget everything else in the film because you came out of the cinema going, "Oh, what? This is cool." But and what I think makes Rogue One so revered. I went out with a friend of mine last night.
Mm.
I think I went out with Stu, and he was saying, he's like, I've started watching the new Star Wars trilogy, and he's like, Force Awakens, hated it. He's like, I hated it, and I was like, watch Rogue One because Rogue One is the one that everybody likes.
I remember coming out of that film actually messaging Robin going, just seeing Rogue One, for me, it's as good as, if not better than the original trilogy. I remember Robin specifically just turning around to me going, that's impossible. That is absolutely...
And then I sat down and saw it.
Sorry, Matt?
You woke me
And
up.
generally, by the end of it, I could hardly breathe.
Yeah, it's one of those things of... I said to him, it is as
My
good
hands
as,
had
if not
gone
better.
numb.
Yep.
It
was
makes
just that good.
it more compelling because the playing field feels level.
Yeah.
Palpatine just doesn't feel level. It doesn't feel fair. It's just here's this over. I mean, okay. I think the question I kind of almost want to pose to an extent here is like, well, again, let's start with Phil because no one's asked him a question yet. No one's asked him a question. What do you want from a villain? And I'm not just talking Star Wars. Obviously, it's the Star Wars, whatever. We're talking about villains. But
Yep.
if you want a villain or an evil figurehead in any property, it doesn't matter. What do you want from that bad guy?
What I want is reason. I mean, good, solid reason. It can be relatable, can be unrelatable in terms of it can be, something that is completely fantastical. Doesn't matter what it is. I want reason. I want believability, and I want a flaw. I want to be based on some human flaw of some sort. Something that you can, even if you can't relate to the initial cause, you can relate to their feelings as to why this certain thing must be this certain way. I want 3 dimensions from a villain. I don't just want your standard I hate everybody or I hate a certain group of people, or I want some more depth to it. What I like in my villains is someone who believes they're doing the right thing, but for the wrong reason, but they don't see it as a wrong reason. They think they're doing it for necessity. I mean, okay, yes, this is Star Wars, but it's one of the reasons why I like Thanos. Thanos goes, I see the universe as imbalanced, and I'm going to make it balanced. Yes, okay, his reasoning is completely and utterly insane, and how he goes about doing it, and the way he goes about leveling the playing field is utterly insane. But that's not the point. The point is that reasoning, that kind of level playing field, is what he wants, and that's a reason.
The smart. We're going to cycle back to what we're saying, but the smart thing about Thanos, and this will forever echo within me as like one of the great cinematic moments. Is Infinity War. Endgame, he was the Mad Titan. Like we know him as the Mad. But Infinity War was he managed to convince the audience that genocide was a good idea.
Yeah.
In the delivery, like Josh Brolin owned that part. But like from what you're saying, he's a great villain because he manages to, even for a split second, make you think, well, actually, that's a good point.
Yeah, but again, that's why I like Krennic, because Krennic thinks he's doing it for the good of the galaxy. He thinks this will bring safety and security. This will stop the Rebel Alliance. This will stop people rebelling against what he believes is the right power, the right thing. People still believed in the old Republic. They believe the Empire is better because they've been brainwashed into believing that is the better course. So Krennic, again, was why I was so disappointed he was a one-shot in terms of the films, but when you read Catalyst, you get that added backstory to him. It's also, fair enough, one of the reasons why I used to like Hux. I say used to like, because after episode 9, I don't like the character very much. And that's purely because of the way he was handled, the way his ending was handled. Because when you go to episode 7 and look at Hux, his impassioned speech about, talking about the resistance, saying they acquiesce to disorder. Their whole thing is, we want to bring, the First Order is bringing order and justice to the galaxy and bring it to bring it back to the Empire, back to a time of peace. The resistance and the Republic are getting in their way of bringing everything to be fair. The Republic in here are just a bunch of hippies who don't know how to run the galaxy, and they're letting chaos run amok. And they want to level it out and make it what it is. When you get to episode 8, he almost pulls the trigger on Kylo. He goes, I can run this shit better. I can be a better helmsman than Kylo. I want to be that number one. Of course, then he realizes that Kylo was just about to slaughter his ass if he realized it, so he thinks better of it. But he then bends the knee, as it were, to Kylo. But again, it's that whole level of just, I'm doing what I must for the galaxy because, well, this is what the galaxy needs. And then you get to episode 9, and his whole arc is ruined by
I'm the spy.
Exactly. And I don't care if you win. I just want Kylo to lose. And his whole build-up, his whole life up until that point is ruined, because if you again look into his father and how he created that whole program of taking children when they're young and brainwashing them, going, okay, like the Jedi were taking younglings and turning them to Jedi, he was taking them, turning them into stormtroopers. He was brainwashing them entirely.
You say like the Jedi as well. Really cool.
Well, that's the thing. So the Jedi are, in essence, although they are portrayed as the good guys, and they are, for all intents and purposes, the portrayers of light, they are not innocent. They are not innocent at all. And it's something that both Luke and Yoda realize by the time he gets episode 8 and episode 9.
They are very flawed.
They are, and they realize this, and they go, "We have screwed up along the way." You look at anything like, for example, when you talk about Dooku. Dooku's a villain that I've been listening to. Dooku Jedi Lost. It's a review that I want to do, something that Rob and I will talk about in the future. He was taken as a child, didn't know where he came from, who his family was, of course. There were just rumors and murmurs, of course. You kind of know roughly your backstory, but you don't know much. And he was actually returned to his home planet. In his case, I now have a sister, I now have a family. What is this? I'm now torn between being a Jedi and being human, having a life, having a family.
How did he become a count?
It's hereditary.
Sorry,
Right?
It's hereditary.
yeah, it's hereditary. Yeah, his father was the Countess Selenia, Salerno, sorry,
Sereno.
The Sereno, yeah. The
He did find out who his family was.
Yes,
Yes.
and I'm working through the story now as to how he turns.
Interesting villain. That's interesting. That's an interesting backstory.
Yeah, because because I read Dooku Lost because I didn't want to listen to it. But once you read / listen to it, you kind of sympathize more with Dooku. So without going into it, because I know Phil hasn't finished it, after I'd read it, I was like, this makes Dooku so much more interesting. Because obviously in the films, you just know he used to be a Jedi and then he was turned. But in Jedi Lost, you find out the reasoning and find out more about him as a character. And it just makes his character so much more interesting because you find out about his history and like the literal reason why he left the Jedi Order.
Yeah. Well, here's an interesting question for the pair of you, because from us talking about this, the one thing I'm picking up is books, comics, and TV shows, be it animated or live action. The villains are ones we prefer because they have been more built up and they have more reason, they are more fleshed out. True or false?
No, false. Palpatine had 6 films to be fleshed out and another 3. Palpatine's Bowser. He does the same thing every single time. And no one cottons on to how to stop him. I'm going to corrupt you. I'm going to do it again. And I'm going to keep going until someone works out what I'm doing.
Although now I have the mental image of Palpatine turning around to Luke and going, "I'm sorry, but your Jedi are in a different castle."
No. It's more of the fact your princess is on another Death Star.
Yeah. It does the same thing constantly. Like, I think the characters we're mentioning, books, TV shows, like let's lump Moff Gideon in because we don't really know who he is.
Yeah.
He already seems really...
that have been teased. They're not going. Here's the big bad. Here he is. Let's deal with him. They've been teased. All right. Thrawn has been, and I've always said, let's retcon back. Netflix, Marvel. Okay.
Yeah.
Daredevil, one of the finest bits of TV I've ever seen. What a great example of why any comic book medium should be told over a TV series, because each episode is serialized and becomes like an issue. It's a separate issue. They build up really nice. You've got time to build this up. Yeah. And like, do you know what? The prequel films, Star Wars prequels, could have been not Palpatine. It could not be. It could have been anyone, which would have kept Palpatine being interesting. You know, he would have been an inkling, and that would have been cool. And then by the time he came back for 9, you're just like, well, he's been alive. He met Qui-Gon Jinn somehow, and then survived forever on lightning, Mountain Dew. But you go back, and the villains we're talking about are ones that have been teased and serialized, because in books, comics, TV shows, you've got a chance to really slowly build these, and you've got a chance to slowly reveal and build their intentions, and you've got big reveals and coming next issue. Whereas stuff like the films can't really do that. You've got to,
as I said, set up,
first act,
plotline, done.
Yeah, you've got to set that up. Maybe something will happen in the second act of the film to make them question themselves, and then by the third act, you know, and it's a really good example. I'm not going to plug myself, but was talking about it, and I'm going to use Craven as an example for how I don't know if you listen to the other podcast I do. If not, I'll sort you out. But we had a discussion about Kraven. Kraven's rumored to be the villain for Spider-Man 3. So we got in this big talk of who would play him, why, how would they do their motives? And I think, personally, it's a really good example of, I think, an interesting villain. Okay. You establish him baseline, and Marvel are really good at doing it. Mysterio was really good. Vulture was really good as well, actually. If we're going to stay in this. And we were just like Zac Efron to play Kraven. Zac Efron. And he starts as like an Obama-type character. He's super charming. He's super charismatic. And then what you need is something in the second act to happen to villainize him.
Yeah.
So we were just like, he's running for mayor and sees the Mysterio message and is like, well, if I catch Spider-Man, my poll approval is going to rocket up. It's going to be great. And then something needs to happen in that second act, which gives them a driver. So maybe he fights Spider-Man, Spider-Man refuses to kill him, and his pride gets hurt. This is what you said, Phil. It's that human flaw, yeah? It's one of the 7 deadly sins, which is a great catalog for the... His pride gets wounded. So he comes back in the third act, and that's the whole thing now. He's like, I'm going to do this because you embarrassed me. And I was like, well, what a really cool way to tell a Kraven story. And you apply this to any villain. You look across the Star Wars films with Anakin.
Yeah.
Here he is established. Here's something to give him a crisis of faith. Here's the end result. Here's a redemption. Now you don't have to have a redemption. Palpatine was great as just everyone loved Vader.
Yeah.
It was like a sprinkling of... This is becoming Star Wars Episode 2. We hate Palpatine.
Well, not hate Palpatine, but yeah. I love him for some aspects. But...
Sprinkle him in, and you watch those films for the first time and just kind of go, oh, there's someone bigger.
Yeah.
What a great mystery figure to have in the background. There's someone who's controlling this. But and then in Jedi, when he's on his throne, he's been like, finish him and whatever. And then you watch the prequel films, and they start fleshing this big bad out, and it's very smartly done.
Yeah.
But imagine if the Palpatine role was Dooku.
Yeah.
And then you bled through that maybe Palpatine was Darth Tyrannus' apprentice.
Yeah.
And then he took the man, and then suddenly that makes Palpatine a lot more enthralling as a character, because you go, oh, well, he's had a motive, he started, he's had someone to question himself, and now it's the fall.
Which is why I'm going to bring up, okay, so elephant in the room quickly before we talk about Darth Maul. Of course, everything's happened with Ray Park of late. You know what I could do. No, it's fine. No, Ray Parker, everything's happened with Ray Parker's side, not talking about the man, talking about the character, Darth Maul. Darth Maul is a very, very interesting character because he was teased in episode 1.
Yep.
You never saw him again in terms of the main saga films. He was brought back and teased yet again for Solo. In the Clone Wars, he was built up and built up and built up. His storyline was fleshed out. The Marvel comics they've done since then, so both pre-episode 1 and post-episode 1, again, fleshing the story out more from this this son of Dathomir, who was sold to Palpatine as an apprentice by Mother Talzin, as for various means.
He's a catalyst.
Yeah, exactly.
Crisis of faith.
He was then discarded by Palpatine, so thrown away.
Literally thrown in the bin.
Exactly.
Faith.
Yep, used an asset. Then he wanted to build himself back up again. So through the Clone Wars, through Clone Wars.
So the point is something happened to actually villainize him.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. This is why I'm building him up as one of my favorite villains from Star Wars. The fact that, again, he was built up through Clone Wars. This whole rise back as I was discarded. My hatred of Kenobi kept me going, but I want to, I was right for... Exactly. I was supposed to be Palpatine's right-hand man, and eventually everything was supposed to be mine. I know what the plan is. I know what's happening. No one's going to believe me, of course, but I know what's coming. I know all the 66. I know-ish what the plan is. I've never told fully, but I know roughly what's happening. By the time he gets to the end of the Clone Wars, and the finale goes, oh, okay, the plan's actually being enacted now. You're all doomed. Good luck with that. I'm going to save what little empire I can for myself in terms of building up his crime syndicate, being broken out of General Mandalore and things. By the time you get to Rebels, he's a broken man. He's on Malachor. We don't know why and how he got there at the moment.
I don't
But
know how
he's
that
on Malachor, just left completely and utterly gone. I
I
am
don't
now.
remember the answer.
Yep.
But he has an arc and he has a trajectory and he changes.
But not only that, by the time you get to the end of his story in Rebels, he has a redemption, but it's one you don't really see coming. It's
Oh,
a
I think I've seen that. Is that when like Obi-Wan's holding him and he's like, "Tell me, is he the chosen one?"
Yeah.
He's like, he is.
Yes.
That wasn't bad, actually.
No, it's not bad at all.
He is. And he's just like, yeah.
It's also one of the greatest fight scenes in Star Wars because you watch them doing it in their minds. It's
a
just
Qui-Gon thing as well, doesn't he? He takes the Qui-Gon stance, then goes into
yeah.
He
Because
basically
Clone Wars
goes through
Obi-Wan,
both
then
his
his
different stands, then Qui-Gon.
yeah,
yeah, he
And
goes
then-
to taunt Maul.
yeah, and of course Maul
And then
tries to
and randomly dabs, yeah.
yeah, and then of course Maul
Obi
tries
dabs
to
Obi.
Stop Maul!
Maul tries to end him the same way he did Kenobi, and that's why he ends up being killed. And of course, he then realizes after this is all done, his journey's finally ended. But he has a full journey. He's so fleshed out.
He has a trajectory. He has an origin. He has a fall. He has an endpoint and a purpose.
And pride, that his ambition are his human flaws.
Yeah, and this started because he turned up in 19. When did Phantom Menace come out?
99.
99. I was about to say 99. Actually, I was about to say 99. And we were all sat there with our finger skateboards. We'd thrown away our Tamagotchis.
Oh, yeah.
We were doing some Kia Ora squash, and this dude turns up on the movie screen with horns, and he goes,
And a double-bladed lightsaber.
and everyone went, "Oh, what is this dude?" Not only that, he moved like a ninja. It was the 90s. It was a simpler time, and it all started because he looked good
Before the
doing.
internet, before the dark times.
I was there 6,000 years ago.
Yeah, but he looked good, and he actually did stuff.
Yeah,
He's the exact opposite of Phasma.
don't get me started on Phasma.
Phasma- Okay, seriously.
Yep.
We've been through. I can't remember if we went through the discussion on the episode last time or whether it was the after show.
It was the after show.
Massive missed opportunity.
Hell yeah.
I hate Phasma with a burning
But
passion.
you hate her because she wasn't utilized in the correct way. Because Gwendolyn Christie is magnificent.
She is, but
She's-
Phasma
Well,
is,
some people generally like Phasma.
and they're wrong. No, everyone can have their own opinion. That's fine.
I saw something the other day where someone genuinely wanted to call their child Captain Phasma because they were their favorite
Well,
character.
No,
And
I,
I nearly,
Captain Phasma, that's a cool name.
mean, Captain Phasma's a cool name, but the character is an abject coward. And the way I have given her a fair chance, I really have. I've read her comics. I, of course, Ron and I've discussed her book in depth. I have watched
yeah,
films.
you know,
I've
you
given
messed up when she's just cameo in her own book.
Yeah, I have given her every opportunity I can to be as fair to the character as possible because I don't
Yep.
like. I like having a fully rounded opinion if I can when it comes to certain things, and no, I can't. When in her own comic, she goes, "I'm killing you or trying to kill you because you know I was the one that turned off the shields, so you must die because people can't know my shameful secret."
But
She
she
literally run away. She is an abject. The way she gets out of the trash compactor and buggers off. She runs away. She's a coward.
I mean, to be fair, the planet was exploding when she got out of the trash compactor.
I can't remember what we actually spoke about on the last Star Wars, so I'm going to go into the Boba Fett thing. So I can't remember if that was after show, if it was pre-show, and if it was in the show, then deal with it. But if it was in the after show, it's a really interesting point we've not touched on. Well, you two have with me. Boba Fett was interesting for much the same reason as Maul. He looked really cool, and he does look awesome. It's like Clint Eastwood in space. Look at him. Right. And then, I mean, you've got to keep in mind that we wouldn't have The Mandalorian. We'd have none of that if it wasn't for that initial character design. Okay. That sparked a whole new sect for Star Wars. He looked great. He was, Empire Strikes Back, he was actually a threat to the main cast. Like, you know, he captured Han. Like, dude, he's a threat. He actually was seen to do something. In the same film where Vader doesn't really lift a finger. He's like, yeah, send my ships in the asteroid field. Darth Vader, the scariest man in the galaxy, turns around to Boba Fett and basically goes, "Don't." He's like, "Don't. Just behave." Vader, that's not what he says. This is why I don't
Behave, mate.
You watch Snatch Wars, it makes it behave. But basically, the scariest man in the galaxy turns to this faceless gunslinger and tells him to calm down for all intents and purposes.
Full disintegration.
Exactly that. And then Vader doesn't capture Han. Boba captures Han. Vader doesn't decide to hide in the asteroid field in his ship where the Falcon, because Boba outthinks Han. He's like, he's going to do this.
Also, it happened to his dad however many years ago as well.
But he doesn't. Vader doesn't do that. The person who does all the legwork in Empire is Boba. Yeah. And then he turns up, Return of the Jedi, flirts with that Twi'lek by tilting her chin and walking off. He's like, oh, action time. See you in a bit. And then just knocks into the Sarlacc, or just
by a blind guy.
By a blind guy. By blind Han. So that's okay. But what you've got is someone who's an actual threat to the cast. Phasma was meant to be marketed as the next Boba Fett, and then matey boy with TR8R. Correct me now, Robin.
FN2199.
Oh, I'm going to race you two on knowledge. This is great. And he turns up and he steals the spotlight because he's an immediate threat to Finn. He's got a cool weapon. He looks great, and he's a threat. And Phasma never was. And arguably, Palpatine was never a direct threat to anyone through those films.
Yeah.
I mean, and it relates. Phasma was meant to be the next Fett. I think her costume's cool. I really think her costume's cool.
Yeah, she looks cool, but they forgot the integral part of actually having her do something to match her look.
Exactly. Yeah. And it wasn't a case of going, we'll just do another character that looks cool and rip it picture. When the Force Awakens action figures first came out, before the film, the first wave of them, I remember being in a Tesco, and on the shelf was a Boba Fett action figure. It was like one of those weird deluxe ones where it was like, clip on the armor over him, and he's got solar cannons now. I bought it. Instantly, I was like, it's Boba, buying it. He's so iconic. He was in the action figure range for the new film that he wasn't in.
Yeah.
And then I think someone went, we'll do another Boba. We'll just do another Boba. We'll make it Phasma. We'll make it Gwendolyn Christie. It'll be great. And it failed because she achieves nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, as you say, she did nothing. And by the time you get to episode 8 as well, it's a case of, I'm tired of you already, and you've done nothing. It's exhausting. And then I'm gonna kind of round up the show by talking about my favorite 2D villain of all when it comes to Star Wars. When I say two-dimensional, I mean Saturday morning cartoon style villain in the meme lord himself, General Grievous, because General Grievous is kind of a threat, but you know they're all going to live. That's kind of the problem with doing the prequel seconds. You know they're going to make it out alive.
I love him.
Yeah, I love Grievous. But again, he's one of those villains that they add more in Clone Wars, but he's a puppet. But he's the ultimate puppet villain. He doesn't know why the strings being pulled, how they're being pulled. He thinks he's in control. He goes to Lord Sidious, but he doesn't know who Lord Sidious is. He just believes he's there to win the war against the Republic.
But he's Maul Mark II, because Maul gave us something we'd never seen before, a dual lightsaber. Grievous was
4.
We have 4 arms, and then you're sat there when he starts windmilling his hands. You're just like,
I'm afraid they are to make out Dooku. And of course, it provides us with the greatest people of all of
memeable Star Wars moment. I'm gonna hang on. I'm gonna do this. It gives us. Hello there. Oh my god!
Also, the other one of a fine addition to my collection.
You're right. You collect stuff that appeals to us as fans who buy all the merch.
Exactly.
Yeah, man, I'm all about Grievous.
I mean, it's the point. It's to the point that on my phone, and I was showing this to Robin not too long ago. On my phone,
it holding lightsaber.
It recognizes, goes, okay, people you may know in terms of your photos, people you take the photos of the most. I have so many memes of General Grievous and Obi-Wan from the Hello There that it has its own folder dedicated to it. Going, you must know this person because you have so many. I have like 52 of the hello there memes because I can and because it's great. And that's the thing with. So he's my favorite 2D villain because, again, unlike Mull, who was given so much more background, so fleshed out, he's there, he does his job, he's done, he's a threat, but he doesn't say an awful lot, provides us with memes. And again, like Boba, not an awful lot added. I mean, I like what they do with Boba and Clone Wars to give him a little extra flavor.
But it's completely and utterly unnecessary.
Yes, but unlike...
but you just accept that he's a gunslinger. You just believe that this guy is solid, yeah? And great, give him backstory, but not everything needs a backstory.
No, but there are certain things that do, certain things that don't. There are certain characters we'd like to have more of and certain characters we'd like to have less of. And that's been the whole point of tonight's show, is to talk about villains we like, villains we don't like, villains that we wish to see more of, villains we wish to see less of. We want to see more of in the future, talking about Maul, talking about Dryden Voss, potentially talking about Jabba, talking about anything in terms of that story.
No. Shoot, Gideon. I want to see more Gideon. I really want. He pulls out the Darksaber, and oh boy, Gideon.
So talk about
we've got
Gideon.
season 2 for that.
The funny thing is, you talk about Moff Gideon. When you put it in the chat saying Gideon, I had the wrong Gideon. I had Gideon Hust prepared.
Oh, does that count as a 2D? Are we counting computer games as 2D?
I say 2D. I mean 2-dimensional villain.
Although you mentioned Grievous as a 2D villain, he literally was introduced in a cartoon.
I love Iden Versio.
Iden Versio, I love, but I also don't like in terms of how quickly introduced and then quickly turned to the rebels.
The Inferno Squadron were cool. I love the Inferno Squadron.
The problem I have with Battlefront 2 is, like Phil said, it's just they just basically turn like that. It's another problem I kind of have with Star Wars, is that the amount of people that defected from the Empire, I'm surprised they had anyone left.
Yeah.
Because Palpatine was hiding them all on Exegol.
The entire Empire must have been clones. Not still an Empire from the
No, that's not a problem, damn it.
Palpatine randomly has a second Empire in his pocket, but these ones are red.
Yeah.
Right, I know you're talking about closing out, but have you got any news we can hit me with?
There is no real big news at the moment. There really isn't. It's kind of
action figures, man.
Okay, true, fair enough. Yes, talk at the Black Series things. I didn't have them prepared, but yes, if you give me a couple of minutes, I can indeed have them all brought up if you want to check them out yourselves. Talk about the
that Bounty Hunter pack is killer. Like when you shared that in the chat, I was like, I don't care if Django looks janky.
I was going to say, what's going on with Django's helmet? It's got like blue layer buns on his head.
That box is cool. And then there was the Sith one I saw. Am I wrong? Yep. There was a Sith one with like a red 3PO in it or something.
Yeah. Yep. I'm bringing it all up.
I don't know. We've been like an hour. We're not covered really any news.
Well, this is the thing. It's been a quiet bit for news of late. It's just really been the Black Series and Vintage Collection, other particular series that have been announced. So
do you think there's not been any news because Marvel or Disney, not just Marvel, didn't want to do anything around DC fandom?
That could potentially be why, but also there's the rumor, of course, Kathleen Kennedy stepping away with her contract not being renewed and other bits and pieces. There's you have Celebration that's supposed to be literally this time. It should have been going on last weekend, actually.
Have we got any confirmation of the Disney, any of the Disney camps? So for anyone that doesn't know DC fandom, before I say it, is DC did their own online global Comic-Con.
Yeah, D23 is next year because it's every other year.
Are they planning to do that? Because fandom was an online Comic-Con. It was accessible globally for everyone. It was free. There was panels, trailers, merchandise, all online.
There has been nothing yet with Disney. No. Celebration should have been at this time, so you should have had Mando Season 2 trailer should be out imminently.
I think that's going to be attached to some American sport.
I believe it's going to be the NBA Finals. I'm not quite sure. So the NBA.
Yeah, I've heard it's going to be around about this time.
I'm excited for it. Are they going to use Ahsoka in this trailer?
Either that or Sabine. There's plenty they can indeed.
Why not both?
Oh yeah, and Rex.
Is it going to be a scissor reel? Man, there's so much they could do. But I'm just wondering because fandom was massively successful to the point that DC are doing another one in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah.
There we go. This went down really well. We're going to do another one. And now I'm just wondering, is Disney gonna? Because they're big enough.
There haven't been any announcements, official announcements. If there were, I would have put it in the show for sure, because that was something
You would know about it.
Yeah, that's something we would definitely be covering.
I'm wondering, because if news has been thin on the ground, could we be seeing?
So the only thing that we had so far is the Hasbro Pulse announcements from the other day. So we're talking about.
Oh God! Why did you put it up now?
Because
I had to put him up, didn't you, Phil?
Hey, it's the first thing I'm going to talk about with Sidious's lightsaber. They've got the vintage collection for Rogue One Vader because
really
it's
cool.
awesome. Again, going on with vintage collection, the whole way because you need your Rogue One Vader and your Rogue One hallway so you can slaughter some rebels.
Why do you only get one rebel trooper?
Yeah, you got to buy more. It's totally after all. You have the announcement for again some of these new 3.75-inch figure sets.
That's a nice pack.
It is.
Yeah, look at that.
And then the last one
Is that Mandalorian R5, or is it just an R5 unit for the sake of it?
No, it's I think it's from Legends, isn't it? Or is it from Clone Wars?
It's from Clone Wars.
Yeah.
So it's not the one in Mando. That would have been interesting. See, I've got that Boba figure. That's the one that came out with Force Awakens, but he didn't come with IG or Boss. Why put Jango Fett in that box?
Because he's a bounty hunter.
I would have much rather had Forlom or Zuckus.
Yeah. I mean,
give us the Death Star Bridge. Why is that just not the Death Star Bridge bounty hunters?
I mean,
that
we're going to talk about 3.75.
No, that was a Celebration exclusive, the bounty hunter on the bridge wall.
Oh, is it? Yeah, look at him.
I mean, I do love Hondo, and if we're going to talk about my friends,
what's that image? What's the image on the card?
It's from Galaxy's Edge.
It's from what?
Galaxy's Edge.
Oh, because I was about to say that's not the animation for him. I thought that might have been.
That's the animatronic at Galaxy's
He's
Edge.
also coming in Black Series as well.
Yeah, when Phil showed me that picture the other day,
Hold
I
up.
thought that picture was actually a live action one. Totally forgetting it's actually an
animatronic. They've done an animatronic Hondo at Galaxy's Edge.
Have you not
if you
seen
Google it, if you Google Hondo Galaxy's Edge, you will find it. It's incredible. Honestly, if you know it is animatronic, you think it's a person in a suit.
Give me a second, because
it's incredible. Or is it an animatronic?
Animatronic, mate. Fully animatronic. Give me just
total animatronic, but it is so good.
It
looks like an actual person.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it on screen for you, Matt. Just a second.
I didn't know this.
Yeah.
And
is he on the
one of the many reasons I want to go to Galaxy's Edge.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
That's
also, when you see it move, it's so lifelike.
Yeah, that's the pre-production.
That looks like he's got Jack Sparrow's hair, but that's cool.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
And of course, the other two announcements we had from them was the Purge Trooper Electric Star from Jedi Fallen Order for Black Series, and the Clone Lieutenant as well, which is an exclusive. But
actually, that's just going back to the whole topic of this episode. Inquisitors. I want more Inquisitors.
Yes.
Inquisitors means something very different to me.
So the Inquisitors from
Eisenhorn. We can talk about Eisenhorn.
I can chat on both of those for a little while. But
as a quick sidebar to this, Netflix are doing an Eisenhorn TV series. Did you know this?
No, I did not know that. That's awesome.
Netflix. It's live action, and the heavy rumor is Mark Strong's going to play Eisenhorn in a live action Netflix Eisenhorn.
I don't know what that is, but if Mark Strong's in it, it's probably going to be good.
It's going to be. But yes, these are the announcements.
Your Thor Inquisitors, not my Mark Strong Inquisitor.
Yeah, so talk the Grand Inquisitor again. So the Grand Inquisitor, just to close out the show talking about the Grand Inquisitor, was a Jedi Temple Guard who fell and became Vader's one of Vader's basically lackeys in terms of hunting down fallen Jedi, Jedi who sits in the Net of Order 66.
The only time I've come across Inquisitors was in X-Wing because they were ridiculous.
They are still ridiculous, and that's because the Force is now so rotating. Here's a little ship that has 2 Force and can evade and has a blue hard 1. Are you kidding me? They are, and 3 greens. They are so hard to destroy.
They're super
I could go on a rant about Inquisitors and X-Wing for quite a while, but I will refrain from doing so because I could be here forever. Yes.
I want to go to bed at some point.
Yes, I know.
That's the plus they should do is the Inquisitors. Give us a Disney Plus show of the following the Inquisitors.
That would be amazing.
Oh,
that would be amazing.
The Knights of Ren.
Yeah, okay, so here's something we will talk about for our next show. We were talking potentially about Disney Plus shows we would like to see, be it live action or animated, of characters we would like to see. For that, actually, tell you what, let's make that our next show. And for everyone, just leave a comment down below or go to any of the social media that's scrolling on the bottom of the screen at the moment. So at the Star Wars Pod, at Star Wars 2020 on Instagram, or facebook.com/ the Star Wars Podcast. Just find us, leave us a comment on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or here on YouTube. Let us know what you want, what you'd like to see, who you think should be brought in for a TV show, and why. And also animated or live action. Again, your preference, and again, why to that. We will talk about that in 2 weeks' time on our next show. But before we do that, guys, is there anything else you wish to say? So we've been rambling for over an hour now, and I think it's about time we close things up.
I got nothing.
This is really awkward, isn't it?
If you got nothing, you got nothing.
I wanted to say, I can't even think of a quip right now, I'll be honest.
Matt, before we go, do you want to quickly plug your new podcast as well? The other podcast you do?
Oh, shoot, am I allowed? Cool,
Yeah,
all right.
Give a quick little plug.
I've just started a new project with a friend of mine called Sheldon, called The Capers of Valtor, and it's a comic book based podcast. So we did our first recording Sunday about DC fandom. Frothed at the mouth a lot, got really excited about the new stuff like the Batman trailer, which I just want to talk about, but that's not Star Wars. Capers of Valtor. It's on Spotify, it's on Podbean at the moment. And it's just talking about comic books, really, and comic book media is stuff I'm really passionate about. Can't really talk about here to a massive extent. But yeah, check it out, Capers of Valtor. It's great fun. It's just talking about, it's two of us getting very excited about men and women in spandex, and it's very sweary. It's very, very explicit. So if you're under 18, don't tell your parents you're listening to it.
Exactly. This is a lovely family-friendly show here in comparison. But also,
it's impressive. If you listen to Capers of Valtor, I deserve an Oscar for how much I'm not saying.
I also know you in person, so yes, this is very true. But all I have to say is thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at the Star Wars Podcast, at Star Wars Pod, or at Star Wars 2020. This will be available on our Facebook and YouTube pages later on, and we will be going on Podbean, Stitcher, Spotify, and iTunes as soon as I get it all sorted. As I said, unfortunately, personal reasons not been done yet, but it will be done as soon as you know. As soon as I know, sorry, post on all of our social media. I'm used to doing it, mate. Don't worry about that. So until next time, we've been Star Wars. May the Force be with you. Good night.
I have been.
Whoa.
Come, my allies. Observe